So this is the video showing how to build this sled. I'm not going to build one in the video, it's not a build video, and I'm not offering plans for this because it's a pretty simple design. So in this video I'm just going to talk about all the different little things you should be aware of if you're building this. And at the end of the video I'm going to have a lot of pictures of different angles of this with all the dimensions. So you can just draw everything out on foam and then cut it out yourself and then start gluing it together. So I'm just going to talk about really how to assemble everything. So first things first, the body. I don't have foam this long and wide. By the way, it's 6mm Depron from rcfoam.com. So I had to glue two pieces together. You can see the seam right there. It goes from the back to the front. So I glue these pieces together by just shoving them together, kind of holding them tight, and then putting tape along the seam, and then folding the pieces back, and then putting glue along the seam, and then folding them back down flat. And then you put glue on the other side of the crease, and that creates one big, very solid piece of foam. There's a carbon rod on the leading edge and the trailing edge, and that is glued on with a bead of glue that runs across the foam. And then it's also a really good idea to wrap tape around the edge to really hold that on. The carbon rod in the trailing edge is kind of an interesting situation because you're taping your beveled control surfaces onto it, so you just need to give your control surfaces some extra space. Don't put them right snug up onto the carbon rod. Kind of leave like a millimeter from the edge of the carbon rod to the surface before you tape them on, so that they can move freely and not get caught up when they turn down on that carbon rod. There's a good shot of it. As you can see, there's a big chunk out of my rudder from hitting it with the mini quad. But really, just with the rudder, you glue it on right in the center, obviously. Make sure it's nice and straight. When I'm gluing on things like this, you just put a strip of hot glue all the way along and then push it on tight. And then I like to run the tip of the glue gun over the sides and just pump some glue onto the edges to kind of like solidify it. And then just take a popsicle stick or a little carbon rod or anything, and I just simply glue it to one side and then to the other, and that holds it nice and firm so that it's not going to break off or get knocked off by the wind or anything like that. You can build your motor mount out of anything you want, really, as long as it's light enough. This is inch-thick pink insulation foam. You can get it at Home Depot. You could also use half-inch thick foam, or you could just glue two pieces of Depron together and use that. But basically just cut out a triangle and glue it on to the front of the sled. As you can see, it's right on the center line. So mine is just kind of a little curved shape. And you're going to need to mount your motor at an angle, an upward angle of what looks like about 4 degrees. I'm going to check and confirm that and put it up on the screen right here, how many degrees the motor is tilted up. So yeah, I just bolted my Blue Wonder onto a stick and just glued that to the front of the foam. And you're also going to want to give your motor a tiny bit of either left or right thrust depending on which kind of propeller you're using. This motor, if you're looking at the plane or the sled from behind, it has a little bit of left thrust. As you can see, the motor is tilted this way, a little bit to the left, or this way. And I'm using a prop that spins. It's a pusher prop, so it spins opposite as normal props. So you might have to mount your motor a little bit to the right if you're using a normal prop. This prop spins from behind counterclockwise. So if you're using a counterclockwise spinning prop from behind, then give it some left thrust by about 2 or 3 degrees. And then just like this stiffening bracket, I just used popsicle sticks to stiffen this up a little bit. My ESC is just mounted onto this piece of foam, no big deal. I had to put my battery up on this motor mount to get the CG right. And then back here I have the receiver. I'll be talking about that in a bit. And then 3 servos right there, just push rods going back. You want to mount your servos as far, not as far up front as possible, but you can see where they're mounted. That's a good spot. Just you don't want to mount them way back here though, because that would be hard to get your center of gravity right. You'd have to put a battery like way up here. Now for the pontoons or the skis or whatever you want to call them. I like to build mine before I glue them on. So you cut out 2 of the sidewalls and glue the top piece over them. And they'll look like this image you see here as they're just sitting there. The top piece goes over top of the sidewalls, so just like that. And as you can see, there's a bit of a curve to mine because I beveled the edge like that. And you just want to make sure those are nice and solid. Towards the end here, as you can see, there's a little gap, and that is because if you take the snow, pretend this ruler is the snow. As you can see, you need some space for your control surface there. If there was no little space right here, your control surface would always be hitting the ground. And mine seem to hit the ground enough because you can see back there they're pretty torn up. But anyways, yeah, so you're going to make these pontoons or skis and then just put glue down each side and on this side too, and then just stick it on and make sure it's lined up perfectly with the edge of the sled before you really start to hold it and let it dry. And then put the tip of the hot glue gun in this corner and just pump glue out as you run it down. That'll strengthen it up a bit more too. And then I like to put a piece of tape right here and just run it all the way up and around on top there so that it really holds the pontoon on in the front really well, because I've had them break off in the past. Now I'm going to talk about putting tape over the bottom to make the surface that actually comes in contact with the snow. So for this type of thing, you're always going to want to put tape on starting in the back first. So I actually put tape on before I glued the skis onto the body. So I'm going to try and get a good angle of this so you can see the tape with the reflection. I have some good pictures I can put up. But anyways, this step takes a while. But you just put a layer of tape on and then overlap the next layer a little bit, and the next, and the next, and the next. So it's kind of like a dolphin. No, dolphins are smooth. Like a shark. If you've ever felt a shark, if you feel it backwards, it's kind of rough, but if you go this way, it's pretty smooth. So basically, if I'm brushing the sled this way, I can feel the ridges, but if I'm brushing it this way, I can't really feel the ridges as much. So you want to do that so that when the sled's sliding on the snow, pieces of ice and stuff like that won't push on the tape and kind of start to peel it off. So anyways, you just want to cover the entire thing with tape, and then obviously it's going to be pretty hard here on the curve. So you can see what I've done here is just cut a bunch of little slits in the tape and just really work on it and bend it to fit that contour. So as you can see, it's not perfect, but it does bend well, and it works quite nicely. I also put tape, as you can see here, over the whole back of the rear end of the body of the sled, and that's because that area is lower to the snow than the front, so you're probably going to hit some things there. So it's a good idea to cover in tape. It's also probably a good idea to cover your control surfaces in tape, because mine got pretty banged up. As you can see here, I've hit some things, so maybe it's a good idea to put even more tape on it than this, but yeah. Before you glue on this bottom piece of foam on the skis, you can create a bend in it by just kind of putting it up against the corner of a table or something and just kind of like pushing on it and kneading it like that. And then you can form that curve so that when you do glue it on, it'll hold better and you don't have to try and hold it while it's drying so hard. You're also going to want to put tape over the edge to hold the skis on extra well. As you can see, there's just a piece there, and then on this side there's a piece there that wraps around to the edge of the ski, so that'll help. So as for the amount of control given by the control surfaces, you want to have a lot of control, because these things, there's not a lot of airflow flowing over the control surfaces, so you want to have a good amount of airspeed. So you can see my rudder moves quite a bit. You especially want a lot of rudder because it takes a lot of power to turn this thing, on the ground that is. So then here's ailerons. So you can see that's a good bit of control. I'm using the gyro here, and you can turn your gyro gains up a lot because these things fly so slowly. So I'm just using 3 9-gram servos. That's just about the right size you should use. And this is a very lightweight battery. If you're using a bigger motor, you definitely need to use a stronger battery, but this is just a 500 milliamp hour 3S, so it's extremely lightweight. You want to mount your motor so that your propeller doesn't hang down too far below the main board here, just so that it doesn't hit any big chunks. This one's hanging below by just like a ½ inch, and that's fine. Don't have a problem with it. This side doesn't hang down by as much. So this is where the center of gravity should be, right where that line is, and it looks to be about that many inches back from the nose. So this thing isn't super picky with the CG. It flies like this, so at a really high angle of attack, and with the gyro especially, it's not picky with the CG at all. If you try and fly at a lower angle of attack, like say like this, it'll just start to freak out. So it's always going to be up at an angle. So those are the build tips. Now here are pictures, still frames with all the dimensions. If you have any other questions, you can email me at rctestflight@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Bye. Here are the pictures.